All right, hello everyone. I am Nick, and over on the other side is, of course, Justin. Welcome to Midweek Gaming. Today on the docket, we have something quite interesting. Deviri coming up soon, but that'll be next week. I just thought I'd bring that up for what we're doing next week. But this week we will be doing Warframe stuff, so don't worry, that won't be too out of the box. Well, recently Warframe did a massive AMA on, well, DE, the guys who made it, did a massive AMA on Reddit, basically talking about a lot of stuff there, ask me anything, and the community has a lot of questions surrounding Warframe, so we'll get into that and see what exactly
Where that entails.
what that entails. Yes, quite a few interesting points here that some people are saying. Though a lot of the things that people ask in the AMA are like, wait till TennoCon, which is their big convention. So I'm guessing they're gonna have a lot of reveals at TennoCon as well. So,
There's that
but
for
they did
it.
ask. Yeah, there's that. But they did answer a lot of questions as well. So, give and take, right? So, anyways, starting us off, cosplay. I can't speak properly.
Kuda
Crossplay.
play.
Uda play.
We are
But
alien species in the world of Warframe, and today we have crossplay.
honestly, that's the funny thing about Warframe. Unlike Destiny, which is a universe filled with like alien species, and Halo by extension as well, they're like two sci-fi universes filled with alien species as well as humans. The funny part about the Warframe universe is that most things in the Warframe universe, basically all of them, can be traced back to some screw up humanity did 2,000 years ago or
So,
something.
in other words, humanity did something and these guys showed up. Humanity did
Bas-
something and these guys showed up.
Basically, it's like Grenier. They are the result of humans attempting. They are the result of a species possibly descended from humanity attempting to clone a slave army that eventually revolted and killed them off. The
Also,
Corpus, basically humans that got greedy and started a cult based on money, which I'm actually weirdly into.
hmm.
Infested, probably the result of human genetic manipulation that went horribly wrong somewhere along the way. Just everything in this universe can be traced back to some screw up humanity did somewhere along the way. There's just basically no aliens in the Warframe. Which is kind of funny, because I can totally see this happening for humanity. We just don't run into aliens, but we just make a universe filled with our screw-ups.
There are no aliens, don't worry about that.
But anyways, so, back to the AMA. So, crossplay. It's always, or cross-save. It's always a thing that's going to be happening. I believe it was last TennoCon, they promised that they'd been introduced. I think it was last TennoCon or slightly before that. They promised they'd be putting cross save and crossplay into the game. They finally managed to put crossplay in a while back after quite a bit of effort. That was met with quite a bit of fanfare. So now you can play with friends on other consoles if you don't play on those consoles or PC. They did start on PC. As well as Switch, because Switch got lumped in there for some reason. But anyways, now they want to do cross save, and people keep asking, how's that going? So basically, they said, we meant, and I quote, we mentioned on dev streams in the past the team is hard at work on cross save internally. It's likely to be released in small waves, then all at once, similar to how we did crossplay. That is true. They did release it in small batches. Currently, the next step is to introduce cross save clans. So make sure to have clans. Like the next step after crossplay itself for accounts, I'm guessing, is to cross save for clans. At least that's how I'm interpreting it. So you can keep your clan status across platforms,
Makes
and then
sense.
settle how friends will be handled for cross save, which again makes sense. If anyone who plays Destiny knows that they had to kind of retweak how like the friend system works in Destiny, where they basically ran everything now through the Bungie account. So you have your local account friends for like, I have my Steam friends and I have my PlayStation friends, and then I have my Bungie account friends, which are across all platforms.
Yes.
So maybe they might do something like that.
Maybe.
Still a lot of hurdles to come. Account handling, trading. So will we have trading now across across platforms? That would be interesting. But we are making steady progress. So okay, good, cool. Cross save is still going on. They're still doing it. Probably
It's
like I
still
said.
developing. It's just there's a few more things that they have to work for it to actually be very effective.
Yeah, again, coming from a software dev's perspective, it would make sense that the hardest part would be account management, because like the thing about having your game on a system is that you generally tend to root the system, like game system, through whatever account they're playing on. So if I'm playing Steam, my profile will be whatever my Steam profile is. It'll just adopt that, and it will adopt the friends list and so on and so forth.
Yeah,
The problem with cross save is
in
trying
more
to
ways
untangle
than
those.
one. Like a scenario like this, it is very easy to end up wiping someone's entire progress and account if you're not
Yeah.
careful. So
Which,
it's something that they just have to take their time with and make sure they get right on the first time, because if they get it wrong in any way,
yeah, they
yeah.
might end up risking like losing progress or outright wiping accounts. That has happened in the past.
So
But I imagine a few dummy accounts they've been experimenting with in the office have accidentally been wiped in their tests. So
yeah,
give them time. Give them time.
yeah. They
After
want to
all,
make sure that you actually keep your account rather than yeah, start from square one. Bye bye.
honestly, DE has said in the past that they always really want to make sure that they give people value for their time, right? Because this is a grind heavy game, but at least they acknowledge people's efforts and they definitely try to make things, if we change something, we'll give you something to make it so that your time was not completely wasted.
Yeah, it's like if we're gonna change something fundamental and make it so that technically the time you put into it was meaningless, we're at least going to reward you because you did put time into it.
Yeah.
So
But anyways, moving right along. This one I've always found particularly interesting. Is there a defined ending for the current Warframe story? For those who don't know, Warframe didn't actually start out with a story. For those who remember, I've not been around since the ye olde days of Warframe first starting out, because it was way back 10 years ago on PC. This is their 10th anniversary coming up, which we might touch on later. But yeah, I've not been around for that long, but I was certainly around for them to first go out onto PS4, because that's where I started, and I remember being around the start of that era. Warframe did not have a story at that point. It was kind of a Dark Souls-y situation where there might have been story alluded to in the lore, but sometimes it contradicts itself, and it was kind of a mess. They added in much later. It became much bigger of a hit. For those who don't know, DE, the guys who make the game, are the same guys who made. I don't think it was Unknown Battlegrounds. Might have been Unknown Battlegrounds. Unreal Battlegrounds. I mean, might have actually. I think they made Unreal Battlegrounds. Anyways, my point is that they make fun games, but not necessarily games with story. They retroactively added it in later, so that's why sometimes in the early years of Warframe story, something's kind of contradicted itself. But anyways, rant over. But anyways, back to the current, back to the current thing. So, anyways, the question goes on: are there any current guidelines or ideas, and then following feedback to bring out an ending? They respond: truth is, we don't have an ending in mind because we are starting the next beginning. My current notes have us plotting the next arc that will take us through the next 5 years of Warframe story. And then, haha, evil laughs. So, yeah, basically, and that's DE Rebecca, who's the new DE lead, or the new Warframe lead who said that. So yeah, basically, they've confirmed that their notes have them plotting out a rough journey for the next 5 years already. So, I don't expect an ending for at least another 5 years, at minimum. So, yeah, good to know that there is a future of the game planned beyond this next arc. I think Warframe is like I love to use Warframe and Destiny as analogs of each other because they kind of came out around the same time. Destiny is approaching its 10th year anniversary, whereas Warframe is in its 10th year anniversary this year. So we're already in the next arc of the story for Warframe, whereas Destiny's getting to the end of its first arc with the Light and Dark saga.
well,
So
technically, well, yeah, no, I guess first actual arc. Destiny 1 was more of the prequel type thing, and then this is now the actual first arc.
yeah, pretty much. It's a very long arc, but yeah, no. So I expect maybe at some point, Warframe or not Warframe, Bungie will release something similar where they might have the next several years planned out for the next arc. They might already be thinking of ideas. It's just DE has confirmed it already because they're further along in that process. They've already kind of started it. But moving on. So, skipped one of them. So, can we expect of Scarlet Spear recurrent events anytime soon? Also raids. So for those who don't know, if you weren't around for the Scarlet Spear event, it was a massive event. It was a massive collab event, kind of like a game-wide raid, if you will. It involved many things. It involved ship-to-ship combat. It involved on-the-planet combat. It was a massive thing. It was really system-intensive for DE. I remember them talking about that.
Very big game-wide raid type thing.
It was. It was. Everyone in the game contributed to like this massive like operation. And they've done things like this in the past. They have stuff like this now in a way where, you've got Plague Star, you've got ghouls, You've got a few things really, but those are very localized to like a certain planet or a certain place. They're not like entire game wide. I mean, they are game wide. Everyone can contribute, but they're more localized to a single location, and there's not as many moving parts. Whereas Scarlet Spear you had space combat and you had ship combat, or you had space combat. You had on the ground combat, and depending on how the ground combat went, would depend on the ship combat. And it was a back and forth. It was a lot of moving parts, so it was quite system intensive for DE. I remember them saying that it was a nightmare to pull off. So people are asking if that'll ever come back. Short answer, no. um, they spake themselves mentioned on a dev stream that but we'll try to speak to that desire, most likely to the raids. It was a pretty challenging update to put out, and it'll be best to put our resources elsewhere. So that's gamer dev speak for probably not for a while, if ever.
Not a little bit. Not a little bit.
So raids probably also dead, so don't expect those. Anyways, moving on. This is another fun one. I'm doing all the fun ones first.
Yep.
How do you view power creep and the topic of player power versus game challenge? This is another fun one I like to that I really also want to hear the answer to, because for those who don't know, Warframe is both very similar to Destiny but also very different in that Destiny is a game that tries to balance itself for many reasons outside of also it's just its PvE or PvP content as well as a few other things. But Warframe is a game that's basically, the devs have said on multiple occasions they want to give you a power fantasy. That is the base of the game, right? And they even touch on this in the answer I'll mention in a bit. But because of that problem, when power fantasy is your base focus, things are always going to be broken in terms of balance to some
Let's
degree.
be honest here. For the most part, all enemies you come across are mainly just gonna be cannon fodder.
And even the stronger enemies that have just ridiculous power, you can just level to the 99th degree and just snap your fingers and just Thanos snap half the map out of existence. The sad part is that is true. I've seen it. It's horrifying. Like anyone who's watched the Warframe cinematic trailer, like the crazy stuff the Warframes do in the trailer, most of the time when you look at trailers, you're like, that's cinematic stuff. You can't actually do that in game. You can do that in game. You can wipe the entire map by just doing that, and that is terrifying. So yeah, their official answer is we've always embraced the power fantasy. Again, going back to what I said, and the fun that comes with being godlike when fighting mere mortals. The one downside to this is that it's nearly impossible to make a truly challenging content. Make truly challenging content, then Warframe can be easily when Warframes can easily be immortal and deal ludicrous amounts of damage. It is so true. These two objects are at odds with each other, and as for us, the fun comes from the power fantasy. That's going to be our guiding principle. So that's from DE Pablo, who's one of the big, I believe, level designers, something like that, or one of the big game designers. Anyways, so yeah, that's kind of their official stance. They embrace the power fantasy, so don't expect a truly balanced experience like ever, because that would just not work for power fantasy. And the line where he says that Warframes can be easily immortal and do ludicrous amounts of damage is so true. There are Warframes that are just passively immortal and have health regen that can be buffed to be out the rear in terms of its effectiveness.
I am God. Look at me now.
Honestly, what's that one scene from Terminator? I think it was Genesis, where the guy gets shot with a rocket launcher in like a closed bunker, and then you just see him walk out of the flames, and you just see the skin and you just see like all the metal just heal itself, and then the skin and then the clothes just come back. Like that scene. That's basically what Warframes can do. They can take a nuke to the face and just completely come back to normal. It's absolutely ridiculous, some of them. So yeah, that is Warframe for you. Anyways, moving on. Will we be able to use, this is more of a Deviri-based question. Will we be able to use Drifter Melee outside of Deviri areas? Currently, no. Drifter Melee is unique to Deviri, but we will get Warframe-compatible versions of the Drifter Melee weapons for your Warframe. Also, there are some Drifter intrinsics that will apply outside of the Deviri, wink wink. So, yes, for those, this is again a more of a Deviri-focused question. in the Deviri Paradox update, you actually get to play more of the Drifter side of things, which is more of the human side, less than the Warframe side. And we finally get to have humans that can use melee weapons. So people are asking if you can use those outside of Deviri, and well, you just heard the answer no, for at least for now, maybe. But there are some intrinsics that will come with it that you can buff yourself with that will apply outside of Deviri. So, you know, not entirely a separate game mode. Moving right along.
Yep.
Are there any? This is another big one. Are there any plans for another community-made Warframe anytime soon? For those who don't know, I think it was Varuna. She's called, yeah, Varuna, the long-requested werewolf Warframe, which ended up being a were-girl Warframe, which I'm not against.
I mean,
Made by
aren't
a
like
famous comic.
half of the Warframe, like more than half or something, basically look like females?
Yeah, it kind of goes male, female, male, female. They flop back and forth to get a balance. So it's about 50-50, I would say. Maybe a bit more one side or the other. But anyways. Is there any plans for the community Warframe? So again, Varuna was made by a famous comic artist. Are there any plans for more of those? Oh yeah. Well, basically, yeah. Are there any plans for more community-based Warframes in the future? And basically, is it, good for the community to come together? Their answer: we actually know what the next. Actually, it should be better just to quote them. We know what the next 5 Warframes are, so we're booked for a while, as we are currently having a trajectory plan. So never say never, but not anytime soon. So yeah, next 5 Warframes all booked out. They already know what those will be. And generally, since it takes about a quarter of a year to make one Warframe and implement it, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less, depending. 5 Warframes, it'll take a while before they grind through all those. So, yeah, like they said, don't expect anything anytime soon. And I come to the end of my pictures, so I'm just going to go back to get the other notes that I have.
My notes, I need my notes.
Honestly, otherwise I have to scroll through the entire AMA, and I don't want to do that. Oh, speaking of AMA, full AMA thread, link down below in the description. So if you want to have all the questions, I'm not covering every single question that people have asked. Obviously, I'm just covering like the highlight questions that'll probably be the most interesting. So if you want to read all of them, link down below. Anyways, another question. We noticed that Stalker as a potential frame to use in Deviri. So the main question is, will the Stalker mode be coming to the game in the future as an invasion type system like Dark Souls, or has that idea been changed or scrapped in favor of something else? Their answer: no plans for that. Anything that's PvP focused has been put on hold. If we can't make it fun, if we can't make it a fun, doable thing, we'd rather not do it.
Yeah.
So yeah. For
I
those
mean,
who don't
that's the
know,
thing. Like
Stalker.
in Dark Souls, it kind of works out because of the fact that an invader kind of tends to act like a mini boss type of thing. So you can be rewarded in certain cases. So yeah, it's hard. Like that kind of system is always a little difficult and muddy.
Yeah, I even remember someone like Pupsker when he was going through this question, because I admit I'm not the first person to cover this kind of stuff on YouTube, for the MA. He even admitted when covering this question himself that PvP is essentially dead in this game. This has always been a very PvE focused game, Warframe. And while PvP stuff does exist, again, I go back to my previous point about how they focus on power fantasy. When you focus on something like that, it makes balancing basically impossible. So PvP, while it does exist, is kind of dead. I know there are some hardcore PvP plans in Warframe that will hate me for saying that, but I think the general consensus in the community is that PvP, despite some people's protests, is kind of essentially dead. That's kind of why they say that PvP focus has been put on hold, possibly indefinitely, I might add. At least in my theory. So who knows? Like I said, Warframe has always been a PvE focused game. And that makes sense, right? Like I said, when you have power fantasy as your base, it's just better to use PvE. Because otherwise it's the equivalent of mutually assured destruction in PvP. 2 people with nuclear warheads pointed at each other's faces, you guess who's gonna win? Nobody.
No one wins. The game is over.
Honestly.
The game was rigged.
Honestly, when you basically have a Warframe that with an I kill you gun that basically has the ability to wipe the entire map by just pressing a trigger, yeah, it's makes PvP interesting. A lot more hectic than Destiny in some cases because you can just wipe the entire map by pressing a trigger pull. But anyways, on a less, shall we say, world-shaking question, when companion rework? Their response, it's on the short list of things we're going to start looking at. We've started looking at what we really want to accomplish. We'll first share details on what our objectives are, and then we'll share what we're planning to do. Details may be announced around TennoCon. So, like I said before, they keep kind of harping back to TennoCon on a lot of things. So, expect some stuff to be around there, if not at there. But moving on, we'll see. We'll see. Expect it for our fall update this year. So expect this kind of update around fall. Going all the way back to Stalker, this one not about Stalker mode, but about Stalker himself. Can Stalker be unlocked for Deviri Paradox for regular Warframe use? He keeps coming up, so I kind of feel like I have to explain what Stalker is to people who don't play Warframe. Stalker is basically just he's always been a character in Warframe. I feel like, and I know this is kind of a already known information to Warframe players, but humor me for the people who don't. He's always been an interesting character in Warframe. Remember how I said that Warframe never really had a story way back when? Stalker was implemented kind of before that era as well, so there's always been a lot of questions and mysteries surrounding him, and he comes up in several story quests nowadays, and there was, back in the day, there was hinted that there would be a Stalker mode, which we kind of touched on before, which you might be able to play as Stalker. Then, like I said, that may have been, most likely has been scrapped by now, so now he's shown up in Deviri as a possible playable frame or possible playable character. So now everyone's thinking, will he make an official come in as an official character now? So that's kind of where this question comes in. Will he officially become a character now after like what 10 years?
Is he official? Is he real?
Is he real? I mean, you can still run into Stalker. Like, the whole point of Stalker is that if you do, like, some boss missions, you'll get, like, an assassination target put on your back, and then he'll just randomly appear in one of your missions, which is kind of where the thought of Stalker mode was originally going to be. Maybe you will pilot Stalker in those encounters, where he just randomly appears in the title of some random person who took down a boss, and Stalker's like, your sins will not be forgiven.
I know what you've done.
And he becomes kind of like a mini boss that you can beat or you cannot beat. If you don't kill him on your first try, he'll just like be like, "Ha, I win," and just disappear. If you destroy him, though, he does give some interesting loot. But anyways, their short answer to that is currently no. But if things go according to plan, fingers crossed, this won't be the last time you see Stalker in 2023. But what that actually means, you'll have to find out at TennoCon, and then they put not PvP. So don't expect Stalker to come in PvP, but. Yeah, again, like I said, they mentioned a lot of stuff will probably be revealed at TennoCon, so we'll hold our fingers for that. Moving on, are there any plans for new Necromechs? Or more Necromech missions, again, like Orphix? Which was kind of a play on the Scarlet Spear plan. No, not at the moment, but there are plans for some big Necromech content that we're not ready to talk about quite yet. So yeah, more Necromech stuff. For those who don't know, Necromechs are basically like, well, the name's kind of in the name. They're giant mech suits you can pilot around, which says a lot for a game where you basically pilot in a synthetic body. So yeah. But anyways, more Necromech stuff. Always fun. This is something I'm sure a lot of people would want to hear about. Are there any plans for other factions? Other faction liches, like Infested or Sentient or Corrupted. For those who don't know, liches are kind of another aspect of this game's many attempts to make more endgame content. Basically, anyone who's played Shadow War or Shadow Mordor, kind of a similar system. Find an enemy, get the chance to kill that enemy. If you kill that enemy, they become a super enemy, and they, you get the chance to hunt them down and fight them, and if you fail, they grow stronger, yada yada yada. It's a whole system. But right now, there's only two factions that have that ability, Grineer and Corpus. So, are there going to be any other factions that get the liching, so to speak? Their answer is, well, yes, but not this year. But yes. And then they kind of put infested So infested liches coming. I'm really gonna see how they try to make infested liches. Like, what the lore is gonna be behind that.
What that entails or anything.
Indeed. So, anyways, on a less, well, maybe a big question, depending on how you stand on crossplay, which is again a link back to crossplay. For crossplay, voice chat has ever been discussed or considered? Just curious. I have friends who will not use Discord, and it would just be easier to have crossplay voice chat in the game. That is true for some things. Like for on console, Discord can be a pain in the neck to set up sometimes. So yes, VoIP, so voice chat for crossplay, I'm guessing, is being actively worked on and is likely one of our next steps for crossplay and cross-save. So yes, crossplay voice chat certainly going to be a thing at some point. Give them time. And then we circle all the way back to the beginning with how is crossplay going, and I already mentioned that. So let me just one last look to see if I didn't miss anything. Define ending. Scarlet Spear, Power Creep, answer that. Drifter Melee, answer that. Plans for Community, Warframe, yep, and there we go. That's all the big questions that I had on the docket for the moment. So, wait. No, that's all of them. So, yeah, that's all of them. So, what do you think, Justin? Any thoughts, opinions? I know you don't play Warframe, but just as a, as a side note, what do you think?
Crossplay is a pretty good aspect to have in your game. So the fact that that's being like fully flushed out and the team's kind of being like, yeah, no, we've got like this thing going on right now. I'd say it's a pretty good thing. So, yeah.
Honestly, don't quote me here, but I think Warframe and DE in general are kind of like one of the first people to kind of have a a dev stream thing, like where they actively update the community on like a weekly basis and not just like as a PR thing. Because like we know how some games in their development will have like they'll have it's only kind of they'll do it for PR and when it's local for them, but they always have dev streams like every month or so, just on a regular basis in general to just update the community on what they're doing, and they've been doing this for what 10 odd years now, so I would certainly say it's far from a PR stunt at this point, and I think they were one of the first companies to do it. I mean, I don't remember I don't remember 10 years ago any other game developers doing dev streams on the regular. Do you?
Not entirely, no.
So I think they were one of the first people to do it. At least I've always thought they have, because like I said, I don't remember 10 years ago any other companies doing dev streams on the regular, so
There you go.
we will see. But anyways, so yeah, that is all the news so far I have based on the AMA. Like I said, interesting stuff, interesting kind of information that came out of it. I mean, every time people ask, like every time DE opens up questions nowadays, there's always the question of cross save that comes up, which again makes sense. This is a game that some people have been playing for 10 odd years, and it's not like Destiny's 10 odd years where it's been like 4 years in this game, then like 6 years in another. This is one solid game that has been going for 10 years. So some people's accounts are absolutely humongous with stuff like this. And for those who don't know, Warframe is a very grind heavy game. So if you have ground for certain Warframes, then yeah, you certainly do not want to lose them again.
Big chunga.
There's also the legendary Excalibur Prime, which was only available to founders back in the day as part of the Founders Pack. So, I mean, that's, he's been more or less replaced with Excalibur Umbra, which you can get from a story quest, but it's still a nice bit of like memorabilia from old accounts to have from like, hi, I'm an old fart who's been around for 10 years. Ha 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 ha. So I imagine they wouldn't want to lose that too. Like I said, this is a very grind heavy game, so starting on a new console or platform is, yeah, that's the thing, right? When it comes to something like Destiny, I would potentially consider it. If there weren't cross save, I would potentially consider it. I probably wouldn't do it, but I'd at least consider it because there wouldn't be such a regrind. I would just lose all my veteran status, but outside of that, I could just basically regrind everything. It'd take a while, but I can do it. But for Warframe, oh my gosh, amount of materials you'd have to regrind, and
Yeah,
then
like
companions, and
that's the thing when it comes to Destiny is like for the most part, armor and weapons can fairly be easily attained.
yeah,
Certain roles that people would consider god roles and take like
that's the
years
thing.
on
Yeah,
ends to get. Okay, that I
that's the
can
thing. If you're
understand.
one of those guys who grinds out god rolls, that's a kind of you problem. But
Yeah. And then there's also the people who try to get specific exotic weapons through raids and stuff, but yet they can't. So, like, there are some things where it's like, okay, yeah, but it's not as substantial as it is in, like, Warframe in the sense that, yeah, there's, like, a lot of stuff that can go into just getting one character, let alone, like, more than one. So,
oh yeah. And if you have several Prime Warframes, don't even get me started on the grind you need to get one of those. You can't even farm those like parts regularly. You have to rely on RNG through relics in order to get those parts, and then grind the materials to make those parts.
yes.
It's a whole system. But yeah. So yeah, it is certainly not a game that you would just restart lightly. So that's why that's why I always like to like. That's why I understand why people are so adamant about like when will cross save become a thing? When will cross save become a thing? Because like I said, over the years, Warframe has expanded to multiple consoles. I briefly mentioned earlier that they branched off to Switch several years ago. I think early into the Switch's lifespan, maybe about 2020, 2021. Well, that wasn't early, but you get the point. But they branched off to Switch. They're now working on a mobile version of Warframe, which I've remember talking about on several previous streams that they're planning on doing, and they're in development of. That's another thing that sometimes comes up, the mobile version. So yeah, they've got a lot of platforms that they play on now, and Warframe being such a heavy grind game, people are, yeah, that's really cool, but unless they have cross save, you can't really play on those other consoles unless you want to completely reset your account, which I just talked about 10 seconds ago being very infeasible to some people, like myself. So,
There you go.
the sooner that comes in, I think the happier everyone in the community will be. But yeah, other than that, any other comments you think would be interesting, Justin?
Not really, no.
What do you think about the kind of mess? Well, you weren't around. You don't play Warframe, so you wouldn't know about the Scarlet Spear incident, but what do you think about, like, picture this in your mind, right?
Okay.
A game mode, just a game mode, a one-off event that combines ship combat, land combat, which again are completely two different map sets, so they'd have to have two different map sets running in tandem with each other, that influence the other, that constantly are flopping back and forth between each other, that require you to deal with a boss, which you kill that boss, which requires rewards. What do you think about how messy that kind of a game mode would be to make?
That just sounds like Battlefield, but with extra steps.
Did not expect that answer. Battlefield with extra steps.
No, it's honest. Let's be honest here. It just sounds like Battlefield, but extra steps. You've got
I mean, that is the
ship combat, you've got tank combat, you've got like variety of vehicle combat, and then you've got the just general foot combat. So
that's the thing, right? In Battlefield, though, you've got everything running on a single map, so you can just have all the chaos contained, right? But in this case, they had ship combat on a separate tile set, which was a completely separate map. They had land combat on its own map, and those things hop back and forth between each other, and there were two different teams doing it as well, so it wasn't just one giant team that was just flopping back and forth. It was two separate teams, each doing something different, so
yeah.
it was a pain in the neck.
I mean, I can see that kind of thing working, but you have
It
to
does.
be a little forgiving and not be oh hey, the other teams or the other team on this map did this, so now you're going to be like severely punished despite the fact that you've been decimating their team on this side. Like
Eh.
it feels like
Eh.
that's the kind of thing that can end up happening.
Honestly, it was just a, hey, you do this to progress the other guys, then they do something so you can progress, and it was a back and forth thing, really. I don't think there was, correct me if I'm wrong, Warframe players who remember Scarlet Spear, because I do not remember most of it. I played it, but I don't remember most of it. But I don't think there were any real penalties in general, outside of, like, a joint failing of the mission.
Yeah.
But I mean, all in all, I know that kind of system can work because if memory serves, way back in the PS3 days, there was already something similar to that, an entire game based around it. Dust 514 for EVE Online. Yes, I still remember that game. For those who remember that game and know of it, I also remember it, and I want a sequel or something.
I
I know,
want it.
honestly, I remember hearing back in the day that like basically, while players in game would be fighting over a world, you would also be called in as kind of the mercs for that fight. So depending on who actually wins the multiplayer match will depend on which clan actually gets them the planet for their use. So hope you don't screw up that multiplayer match because there might be legitimate people angry with you. At least I believe that's how that game
I
mode work.
mean,
That thing
I
works.
would say in that kind of scenario, you're better off going and having like the multiplayer match, not display usernames in a case like that, especially when it comes to like a kind of clan-esque control the world, gain resources, get power type game. It kind of feels like you're better off, not going and like clearly displaying who's the one who went and screwed everything over for you.
This mercenary faction screwed you over. Go hunt them down.
Yeah, it's like,
Well, I mean, in fairness,
oh,
those are on two
oh,
different
this
games.
group of players like literally messed us over. Like, I don't know. It feels that kind of feels like that's the kind of thing that happens because those kinds of games can end up bringing out some real bad behavior in people and how they, oh, this happened, it's these guys' fault, we gotta like hunt them down and make their lives miserable in the game for a little bit.
Well, I mean, in fairness, those happened in two different games that were just connected because they're part of the same universe. So they had the kind of a bit of a
A little
cross
bit of a
data thing going
separation.
on. Yeah, there was a little bit of separation. Not like people from Eve could literally hunt you down. It was just like, hey, I want to play in the multiplayer map. Okay, you get thrown on this side of the arena. Okay, you get thrown on that side of the arena. Your company A, your company B, your mercenary company A, your mercenary company B. Those guys are fighting over the planet. Depending on which one of you two actually wins, will decide on which sector actually gets this side. So go.
Begin.
And that was back on the PS3 days as well. So
Yeah.
man, I missed that game. I really missed that game. It
I
was
mean that.
simple.
Well, no, yeah, like it's simple in that regard, but it sounds like a logistical nightmare in others.
Yeah, no. I did not know the development for Dust 514. One of these days I probably should look into it. Like I said, the fact that it was done back in the PS3 days, you know. I remember they were making something that they were trying to do for current gen consoles, something similar to Dust 514 in that regard. I think it may have fallen through. I don't know. Like I said, I'll have to look into that. But anyways, that's just a tangent on EVE Online, another game that I kind of played through Dust 514, but I kind of also didn't. But regardless, we're here to talk about Warframe or the AMA, or perhaps we were here too, and now we have. So, all in all, yeah, it's a logistical nightmare to get stuff like that sorted out. I can certainly see why they said that, especially with all the mechanics in Warframe
Yeah, that's the other
that go
thing
on in the
about it too,
background.
is the fact that like the simple act of one Warframe just being decimatingly overpowered compared to another can easily go and tide a match a certain way. So it's like stuff like that needs to be balanced and all that.
That's another reason why a lot of people say PvP is dead in this game. Most people don't care about the power fantasy because it's basically a PvE game, right? You're not competing against other people unless you count who has the highest body count. But for the most part, players aren't competing against other players. For the most part, it's not like each player is trying to murder the other player. Because, like I said, in PvP, because of how powerful certain warframes can be, there is quite literally a mutually assured destruction element to it, where it's like, I fire my gun, okay, I fire you. I fire. You fire your gun, I fire my gun. Cool.
I'm
The
going to
entire map
fire
is leveled.
my mini nuke while you fire your mini nuke.
Your mini nuke. Together, the entire map gets turned into a smoking crater.
Awesome.
Combine that with times that by 4 on each side, and now you have your standard multiplayer map. Because of this, people generally don't run the broken stuff, but That's why we don't have things like team. That's why we don't have things like capture the flag for the most part. But we have things like Lunar, which is basically space soccer, which doesn't require weapons of mass destruction.
But it's probably extremely easy for those who have like really good movement.
I think Lunar is dead. That's another popular sentiment in the community. Lunar is dead.
We have no competitive game modes. We do not care.
Honestly, PvP exists, but
It do be
it
like that.
it do be like that. I mean, hell, the very PvP vendor got killed off as a result of one of the last big story quest, and is now showing up in Deviri as a vendor for Deviri. So what does that tell you? When they kill off the PvP vendor. Yeah, that says a lot. But anyways, so yeah, that's the AMA from Warframe. That's kind of the state of things as they stand now. Like I said on several occasions, they're kind of alluding to come to TennoCon or listen to TennoCon on Twitch to like hear more about the updates that are going on. Because I mean, you can buy it. Like this is the first year that they're attending TennoCon physically after COVID. So this will be the first physical TennoCon I think since 2019. And the first TennoCon I will officially be going to because I learned of TennoCon just when COVID happened, so I had to basically watch them all virtually. But again, while you do want, like, if you can get a ticket to like get official goods and access to a specific relay that's specific to TennoCon that has a lot of stuff to it, you can just watch TennoCon yourself through the Twitch stream. The whole thing is Twitch streamed. So all the big events you can still see for free. I just like going to it physically because I'm a massive con junkie. Don't know if you know that about me. Uh, this is generally like summer is generally the most expensive time of year for me, and not for reasons you might think. It is because of these cons. I go to at least 2, maybe now 3 cons every year. So,
I
and that's
put
just in
my
summer.
money down.
And that is at least what $200-300 per con, not factoring in ticket price. So
Basically.
yeah, I it's very expensive for me around this time of year. And that's not even factoring in the regular things I generally pay for around this time of year, like keeping up with modern game releases. So yeah. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see what they release at TennoCon. Like I said, they apparently have the next 5 Warframes planned out, as well as the next 5 odd years of story planned out. So
There's that.
there's that, yeah. Well, it'd be interesting to see what happens. I imagine the second arc will be a lot more like space horror focused. Because here's the thing, right? People who don't know Warframe do not know this fact, but people who do know Warframe know that there is some level of like cosmic horror to Warframe. It's not like Destiny where it's like, okay, things are bad, but there's a level of hope to them,
We
and
have a
the darkness doesn't get.
chance.
Yeah, we have a chance. Enter the witness, um, but it's not like too like it's dark, but it's not like nightmare dark. Versus Warframe, which when you look into the deep lore, there's some truly effed up stuff that goes on in the deep lore. Like we've got like Cthulian eldritch gods and mad parents killing their children
Yes.
and a bunch of stuff that is not fun. Oh yeah, and space herpes.
Awesome. Which
I think Justin might be more able to relate to it if I describe it as the flood on drugs,
no.
which is already a terrifying thought.
No, the flood on drugs is another well, not really cosmic horror, but another horror from another series, but a story for another time, perhaps.
Well, okay, not the Tyranids level, but we're getting there.
We're getting somewhere, but not there yet. No, no.
almost more terrifying than the Tyranids, if that's even possible. I don't know. But anyways, that's the AMA. I'll stop wasting all of yours time by going on about random topics. That'll be it for this week. Just a reminder before we close out, one final word. I will not be around, not next week, but the week after that, for the next 2 weeks.
About 2
So,
weeks.
yeah,
So
about 2 weeks.
chances are I'll be the one doing, well, I want to say streams, but not really streams, but the kind of our
He'll be making the
report
videos.
/ news. So I will be the one doing that. So
Yeah, he will most likely be the one only doing the videos for the next 2 weeks while I'm gone. I'll be here for not the next 2 weeks. The week after that, and the week after that, I'll be away. I'll be around for next week. Don't worry about that. But after next week, the week after that, and the week after that won't be. So yeah, as Justin said, he'll be doing the news for those 2 weeks. Do not worry though. I will be keeping track of the channel. I will be in Italy, for those who are wondering, on a business trip. So, I will not be able to physically be on the show, but I will be keeping track of the show. So do not worry. I will use whatever Wi-Fi I can muster to do so.
yes.
Plus, we also have a content schedule planned out for the most part for those 2 weeks. So don't worry, it's not just going to be random filler episodes. We actually had a meeting about this yesterday about it, but we have stuff planned out, so don't worry. Content other than me being absent should be the same as usual.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, yep, there's just that housekeeping tidbit I wanted to get done with, or address, I should say. And other than that, yeah, that's the end of the stream. Any final closing thoughts, Justin? I know I basically said everything, but if you have anything.
Not really, no.
Alright then. See you all next week then.
Enjoy while I wrap up defeating this enemy.
What are you playing? I have not been checking.
I'm playing Destiny, and I'm currently playing the campaign.
I see. Which one of the campaigns?
The very first mission in the current newest one.
Okay.
I'm just kind
Fair
of
enough.
slightly bullying a Tormentor right now. Ever
You're
so
bullying
slightly bully the Tormentor. Funny man.
Torment the Tormentor.
Tormentor get bully, funny man get destroyed.
Torment the Tormentor.
Alright, now it's time for the Cabal drop pod part. Gentlemen. Hello, Osiris. Goodbye, Osiris.
Hi, Osiris. Bye, Osiris.
Like, what do you mean? Why am I in this pod, Guardian? Get me out!
The Alzheimer's is coming back. Why am I in here?
What's going on?
What's going on?
Why are these weird rhino things staring at me?
Honestly.
Where are my pills?
Where are my pills? Oh my gosh.
Alright.
Honestly.
Have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
Have a good night, everyone.